6:01 p.m. Thank you for being here. I will just officially call the meeting to order. And we have Kirk, Rosemary, Rich. Norm is excused. We don't believe Larry's coming. Maybe he'll be able to join us later. And Gary Gaishel is here. Any additions to the agenda today? No. Fantastic. We don't have any members of the public, so I'm pretty sure we don't have any public delegations. Which brings us immediately to new business, which is the follow-up on comments and responses from the people who have seen the POC draft so far. So we have a few things to go over under this agenda item. First, we didn't receive any official communication from the Board of Selectmen after their public hearing as yet, but I know a number of us here were at that meeting on the Zoom, so we can go through that. And we also have a letter from the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, Land and Water Resources Division that we can go through with their comments. Additionally, Gary is sending the document to the town attorney so we can make sure everything that we are legally required to have in there is in there. And I don't think we got back anything from anyone else. Did we, Gary?
No, those were all the only comments we had was from Deep and what you gained at the Board of Selectmen.
Okay.
I was hoping that they would send something down. I haven't talked to Mark. I can ask and see if they'll be doing something like that, or see if I can find out from Sandy. Otherwise, maybe we'll just have their minutes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, and those weren't posted yet today. They didn't take a vote, which I don't know that they need to, but I thought that they were going to.
I would. They might. I don't think they had to, but statutorily, I mean, they would endorse the plan, and depending on whether they did or not, I think that might have some impact on whether we need a majority vote to.
Exactly. So I don't think that they have met between last on the 30th and they meet tonight. So I don't know if they're going to vote to endorse it or not tonight.
Was it on their agenda?
I did not look.
Do we know whether or not that's a statutory requirement that they
Vote?
that they vote and approve it?
I can find that out right this second.
Because I can, yeah, I mean, they don't meet till 7, so if.
Let's see. Not on the agenda.
Right, but they do have a spot to say add, items to the agenda. So if we have a couple of channels to get to all of them. I think that if we sent them I could send a text and I could send an email, or somebody can send emails. We could reach out to all of them and tell them that they need a vote if in fact that's the case.
Yeah, I know what happens if they vote negatively on it. It just impacts how many votes the Planning Commission needs to pass it.
So I'll just my screen quickly.
Mm-hmm.
This is the statute here. So at least if you can see at number 4, it says, but days prior to the public hearing or on adoption, we submit to the legislative body for review. They may hold one or more public hearings, and they shall. It says they shall endorse or reject such entire plan or part thereof, and forward comments. So technically, yeah, they need to vote on this thing.
And they need to do it tonight, right? If we backtrack 65
days?
Well, that was already
I mean,
happened.
the question is if they don't, right, what happens? They may say, so the commission, planning commission, may render a decision on the plan without the report of such body or board. So they're supposed to either endorse it or reject it. We may or may not have that if they don't vote on it. And it doesn't look like there's any penalty if they don't, because the commission can continue to move forward in their own discretion.
Okay.
I have a
So
question.
it doesn't impact the vote unless they reject it.
No, it doesn't. That doesn't even say that there. It just says they may hold one or more public hearings on the plan and shall endorse or reject the entire plan or part thereof, or any amendment, and may submit comments and recommended changes to the commission. The commission may render a decision on the plan without the report of such body or board.
Oh, okay. So we're okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Got no comment back from the Council of Governments. I'm not sure if I can reach out to them just to make sure, but I know in the last one they did saying there was, it was consistent with the regional plan. It's nice to have that when we send it off to the state.
Mm.
So I'll check in with Jim Butler up there and see if they can maybe crank something out.
There is someone in the waiting room.
I just let them know. All right, so I'm gonna stop sharing my screen.
Great.
Okay. All right. Should I unmute them?
Yeah. Hi, who's joined us just so we are keeping track here? 739-3830.
I just get the ask to unmute button, and when I press it, it doesn't do anything.
Yeah, it seems like whoever has called in is currently muted.
You may wish to stay muted.
You're welcome to be here. We're just trying to make, involve you in the conversation if you want to be.
Here they go. They're unmuted.
Seven three nine 3830. Do you are you open to introducing yourself, or do you wish to remain quiet?
I wish to remain quiet, please.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you. Thanks for joining us.
You're welcome.
Okay, so statutorily we are fine on that piece. Okay, very good. So I'd like to go over both the letter and the public hearing, and I think possibly we should start with the public hearing. And I don't know if we each want to kind of briefly report on our interpretation of the meeting, since there are no minutes, or I did take pretty copious notes, so I can go through them and we can talk item by item if we want to, but maybe we should just kind of broad strokes, everybody kind of just say how it went, and then we can get into the details if that works.
I have a question too, if you don't mind.
Go for it.
So are we going to outline a process for handling the comments and recommendations, or are we, how do you, because I feel like we've said we're having these public hearings, we've said we're going to listen to the, or if they were to vote, we would have taken that into consideration. I just wanted to know what the plan was for each individual recommendation.
Well,
like, what are we required to do? Are we going to vote on them? Are we going to?
Yeah, that's a good question. My thought was that we would treat them the same way we did the initial recommendations, right? So as we go through, in lieu of having their official comments to review tonight, we'll review our shared notes reflecting the comments that we heard. And when I say comments, I mean the Board of Selectmen, because only one person spoke at the public hearing. And her comments were geared toward a recommendation that already exists about pollinator pathways. So there were areas where they specifically called out items of support. There were some areas that they had questions or did not support the recommendations. And in those cases, I thought we could treat those requests and comments the same way that we discussed and voted on the initial sections and recommendations and initial feedback from the stakeholders and the public and our, internal experts. Does that sound good to you?
Yeah, that sounds good. And the other thing is, I didn't take really good notes, but I know you did, but like we're gonna get feedback from, we got feedback from the Board of Selectmen, and then we'll also get more feedback from, our regular town public hearing, or our own public hearing, I should say. Just in the interest of time, maybe we should keep track of which ones we've already considered and just move on. If we see one that we've already talked to and discussed, we should just like say yes, this and made a decision already.
Yeah. And that will come up in the discussion of our planning commission, right? So we'll have the public hearing, then we'll have the discussion and the vote. So as a full commission, it would, right?
Yeah.
Because that all happens on November 10th.
You're going to get your public hearing in and have all your public comment, close your public hearing, and then you're going to have deliberation on it. So short of someone saying something significantly needs to be changed, I think all it's ultimately going to do is we're going to highlight public comment and say, okay, we can address this, this, and this, but between that night and getting it to the state, it is what it is. That's kind of how I look.
Our last real chance to.
And then we would have to go back if we're going to act on those comments. We would then in January go back, have more discussion, talk about changes, make changes, go through this process again.
We could approve an amended plan though, right? So let's say there was something like that we got overwhelming feedback on, recommendation X has to go. And just a hypothetical. In our deliberations on the night of the public hearing, we could approve the plan minus recommendation X, right? Okay.
Yep. And I think you could even approve it with additions so long as they're not substantively different than what's already there.
Yep. Okay.
And if it gets real substantive or significantly changes the meaning and context, well, then we'll go revisit that in January. But at least we can get a document to the state that's approved. And I think overall, the feedback that I've gotten has been pretty positive. I saw Dan Cunningham last night at Historical Properties, and he was, spoke very highly of the commission and the committee and all the work, and was very happy with it. So I thought that was positive, and I think, I don't really foresee the state having any issue with it. Now, the deep letter is kind of interesting.
Yeah, and we'll go through that.
But short of that, I don't really foresee any issues.
Okay.
How the commission wants to handle it. If there's are significant comments, then my suggestion is we'll deal with it in January.
Are you comfortable with that, Kirk?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
We could bring it up at the December meeting and go through that. I don't know if you wanted to schedule a public hearing again, and we're going to need the 65 days, refer the document back to the Board of Selectmen.
Right.
If we make changes, but it's all doable.
Yep. Okay. And hopefully our upfront work on really opening up this document to public comment is, hopefully we see the benefit of that here at the end. That's my hope anyway, because I think, much of this was written with the public comment in mind. Okay, so before we get into, I guess, detailed recommendations and questions from the Board of Selectmen that I wrote down, can we just kind of report on general feedback? Rich, Rosemary, and Kirk?
Yeah, I'm good with that. I think that's a good idea.
Sure.
So I could give mine. I didn't really have a lot of notes, like I said, and I think they did spend a lot of time reading it and taking their own notes and presenting them back to us. So I feel like I feel like it was well received. I didn't notice any negative comments about anything except for some of the housing stuff. But I thought you did a really good job of helping them understand everything that was in the document and presenting, you know, at least what our intent was. So I don't really have much other feedback aside from that.
Okay. Rich, how'd you find it?
I thought it was very well received. I think Mr. Nickerson was kind of focusing more on development, trying to limit the open, use some of the open space for development. I think that's his general philosophy, without getting into specifics on each section. I took some notes on my section a lot. I guess maybe some of the stuff could be reworded, but I thought we kind of had mentioned all the issues that were developed in like the park section. But there's some interesting discussion about, I guess, from Roseanne about the requirements in terms of affordable housing. I thought that was educational. So, but yeah, it definitely was well received, as Kirk mentioned.
Rosemary, any broad thoughts?
No, not particularly. You did a really good job. I think you did a great job sharing the documents and stuff. So that was really good. And also taking the questions. I think that's obviously really challenging. So I thought you did a really good job. And yeah, I feel pretty positive about it.
All right, good.
Great job, Michelle.
Well, thank you all, and thank you for being there to listen, because as you know, when you're kind of in the hot seat, sometimes it's hard to remain in the big picture mindset as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got pretty specific with the questions, and you like knew which page and everything. I was like, wow, great job.
Thank you. Thank you.
For sure.
If you don't mind, I'll just go through some of the specific feedback that I wrote down, and we can decide whether or not we want to discuss it further, or if we feel like we have already discussed, the issue and can move on.
Sure.
If that works for you. Okay.
Yeah.
One of the first things that I wrote down was a comment that came from Mark Salerno and Mark Nickerson regarding accessory units, and our recommendation in the residential development section to allow accessory apartments on, single-family residential dwellings. And we discussed as this group, and also again at the public hearing, that there are some of these non-conforming in the town currently, but they are not an allowable use. And when we spoke about it here at this POCD, we talked about it as a potential avenue to diversify our housing offering and add to our affordable housing portfolio. The feedback that I wrote down from the Board of Selectmen was a fear about, I think someone mentioned additional school children.
Yeah, that's what I remember, is that people might have like uncles with kids and people moving in. So I guess the question could be, do we want to have it be for like older populations, younger populations? Should we get that specific? Like, I don't know.
My professional opinion is no. Again, there's no substantive evidence to say that an accessory unit will generate additional school children. No more than a single-family dwelling will generate approximately 2.5 kids. So your accessory apartment, which was typically one bedroom, probably won't generate any, in my experience. But again, that's not to say it couldn't happen. I've seen.
So that's, I think, an important point there about the one bedroom part. Like if we further defined it as a one bedroom, it would allay that fear, I think.
Well, the issue is it's a zoning matter, and I've had the discussion with Bill Mulholland, and we don't see eye to eye on this, and I'm in favor of him. He is not. I know the administration both came out of zoning, and this is where the philosophy has come from. That said, I know as a planner, it's worked in other communities. So long as you require special permit in particular, it works well, because you give a lot of discretion as to whether or not that use is going to change the character of a single family neighborhood or not.
Mhm.
And that's what it comes down to. And the regulations that I see in most towns require that the unit be part of the primary dwelling. You know, some towns will allow a detached accessory unit. I'm for that too, because we can tax it. You know? And again, off-street parking is key, and these are the criteria that the commission can weigh. I've already written a regulation. I mean, it wasn't well received, but again, it literally mimics another town, Colchester in particular. So I've implemented it there. I saw it work. I think it can work here. It just is what it is, and maybe when the zoning board is of, you know, more of a more welcoming, I guess, of that idea, then maybe we can push a reg forward or something. But I'll still advocate for it either way.
I like it from an environmental perspective and an affordable housing perspective. From an environmental perspective, I like that it allows us to add density without cutting into new land. And from an affordability perspective, I mean, the typical, you know, what you would think of use would be in-law apartment, which helps affordability, but also, like, I see it as a really good kind of, not stereotyping generations that I may or may not be a part of, millennial opportunity as well for affordability for young people to come back and, you know, either live on the same property that they grew up in or on another property where it's geared toward kind of like a single young person, the way that they're built, and just, you know, who would be comfortable living there.
Right. So, you know, I don't know. I think it's a good thing, and we recommended it. See where it goes. I don't know.
How are we feeling vote-wise? And do we need to, I pulled up the wording just so that we could, we say, allow the construction of accessory apartments attached or detached on single-family lots to diversify housing offering without contributing to sprawl or reducing space available for commercial use, provided it does not change or compromise the existing neighborhood character. So minimum buildable lot would still apply here. I mean, if you have a big house that's already using up, you know, what you can build on a lot, then you can't put a detached one, right?
I would hope maybe if we do receive comments from the board, they could clarify their concern, because I think in our explanation there and the recommendation says not to change the character of the neighborhood.
Right. That wording is really good, I think.
So I'm confused that if you had a use that wouldn't change the character of the neighborhood, that doesn't generate so much traffic that it's going to upset that character. Now, again, one item that Bill did mention to me is like, well, if you allow one person to do it, even by special exception, what if the entire neighborhood wants an accessory unit? Well, you have discretion over that, and you'd have to, if they meet the regulations, technically you have to approve the plan. Theoretically, you could, you know, put an additional unit in every neighborhood. Let's say maybe you know, drill that down and say, well, only in the R80 and R40 zones you allow it. You know, you don't need it in R10 because you can do two-family already. You don't need it in R12 because of the same thing. So I think there's a lot we can do, but that was one concern. And I think if every house in our neighborhood had one, well, yeah, it might start changing the character, especially down into like that, the developments like Corey Lane and off of Riverview Road. They're very dense. But I also think it's unlikely that they might put one in. Maybe they would to try to get a rental out of it, some income. But again, if they have the adequate off-street parking and meet the reg, I don't see the issue.
This sounds like an implementation discussion versus a recommendation discussion. It sounds like the way we're leaning is that the recommendation stands, but we can address some of these concerns in implementation once this were to potentially move forward into policy discussion. Does everybody feel?
Agreed.
Okay. All right, all the nodding, I'm going to take as consensus and not call a vote because we're not making a change. Okay. There was a little bit of comment, and I think Rich addressed this already, to make it more clear, the recommendation that we had in there that the schools and parks and rec work more closely on field inventory.
Right.
We have a recommendation that already appears in that chapter in the education section. I think the where we landed with conversation with the Board of Selectmen was to just plop that recommendation as well under Parks and Rec. It's a recommendation that applies for both of them, but only appears currently in the education section. Would everyone here be comfortable with duplicating that recommendation in Parks and Rec?
That's fine.
Okay.
Yes.
Again, no substantive change, but we will go ahead and do that. I'm just making notes. Okay. I'm just going to read all the notes that I have. Some of them are very minor, just so that you all know. There was discussion about discrepancy in the plan that we said that town should digitize records to save physical space, and someone mentions that that's already been done. But it seems like something good to keep doing, so I am comfortable leaving it in if others are comfortable leaving it in.
Gary said the town hall was doing that already, right?
We're in the process of trying to digitize all our materials. I think the town clerk has made the most progress, but in land use, I can tell you we've got lots and lots of paper to scan.
Still worthwhile. That seems like something it would be helpful to have in here if you ever wanted to apply for a grant to help you do that. Okay.
That would be great, yeah.
Nodding is good. Okay. Page 90. This is something I can screen share if we want. And pull up page 90. There was discussion about requiring electric car charging stations. And I just want to make sure that I know what the recommendation was. For business development at a certain size. I think it was a suggested addition to the recommendations, honestly.
I think you're right.
To require charging stations?
Yes.
I thought there was a recommendation under the energy section that suggested putting charging stations in. There you go.
Yeah, so this is the one that they were looking at, I believe, on page 90, recommendation 6, allow space for EV charging station in all municipal buildings and public parking spaces where fit. There was a suggestion to require EV charging stations at new commercial developments of a certain size.
Yeah, I think that sounds very reasonable. So do we want to say allow for, or do we also want to specify maybe for new municipal buildings and public parking, like say that that's also a requirement, or no?
Oh, require it at any new municipal building in addition?
Yeah, not existing, but new.
Well, we want them in existing ones too, right? Because how often do we get a new municipal building?
True. But yeah, okay. Yeah, I guess if we're going to require it commercial, then we may as well also try to get it into municipal and public, right?
Yeah, it doesn't hurt, right? I would think you're serving all those uses.
Yeah, so my question is, I mean, it's a recommendation for a requirement, right? Obviously, zoning can put it through the process, so I'm not too concerned about that. But just logistics-wise, should we keep it? I think this is the clean energy section, which probably makes more sense than commercial development.
Yeah, we could just keep that first part the way it is and then add the requirement for the new commercial. That's fine too, I think, right?
Yeah, I would, allow space in municipal buildings, and you could change the word allow to require. I don't know. That might not go over well, but because now you're going to require the town buildings all. I mean, maybe do we say new? I don't want to say new construction, but I think it's okay. And then, yeah, just.
In regards to the commercial recommendation here. I just, as a quick little anecdotal evidence thing, I've driven by the Tesla station in New London at the New London Mall there, and I've seen it packed
Mm.
with cars. So having a commercial district with charging stations would be like a really good thing for, say, a coffee shop or a little market.
Yeah, I agree with you. It was nearly impossible to find one in the garage at Mohegan Sun.
Yeah. And my lights are flickering over here. I don't know if I'm going to lose
Yeah,
power or
mine
not.
too. I was just like, what is happening?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a slightly windy night.
Yeah, it just kicked up all of a sudden over here.
I would say maybe in addition to new commercial, I don't know if you could squirrel in there like substantial redevelopment or like new commercial and substantial or something that would speak to when you redevelop a property. Because if you think about our existing zoning, we haven't really pursued, and this will lead into.
Lost somebody. Hold on. What just happened?
Oh, I think we lost Michelle.
Rich. Both of them.
Oh dear.
They must have just lost power or something.
Yeah, I'm hearing some pretty violent winds out there. And I thought I heard a tree come down.
Oh dear. Okay.
Well, without a.
We could continue,
there's
can't
Michelle.
we?
Michelle's back. So now we.
Oh, hi, Michelle. Sorry, we also might have lost Rich, I think.
We did.
Oops, I think you're muted.
There we go.
Hey.
Yes, it's quite windy here.
We lost Rich. We'll see when he comes back. So before we lost you there, Michelle, I was wondering if we could, is it possible to kind of squirrel in something after a new commercial that would speak to our existing development, something that would say new commercial and redevelopment of existing commercial or something to that effect?
Yeah, I totally. My internet came back. I'm going to hop back on from my laptop because then I can manage this a little better. So if I might be in two spots here, just for a second. Do you see me in the waiting room now? Okay. And then here.
I need to unmute you.
Yes, I agree with you about redevelopment. Do you want to let me share my screen again? I think I can do that. No, I can't. Can you make me a co-host so I can share the screen and we can agree on the language? Thank you very much. So consider requiring new and redeveloping commercial development / lots to install EV charging stations as part of construction?
That works.
Okay.
Yeah, that looks great. That's cool. I'm kind of glad somebody suggested that. Sounds good to me.
Yeah, I am too. I can make a note I don't feel like it's a substantive change to the recommendation, but if we feel it is, when Rich gets back and we have 4 of us, we can vote.
Sure. There was another note in that section. Paul Daigle wanted clarification about the microgrids, and we just wanted to make it clear that we don't have any intention of taking East Lyme off of, the current system, but that we wanted to maybe even put the potential for microgrids, maybe.
That would have helped.
I think that makes more sense because, yeah, I can envision maybe something in the Niantic part of town and then maybe in like the northern half of town, just making more sense. So develop microgrids that enable to,
Yep, you're right. And that was a wording thing that he had a comment on, not a dissent on the recommendation. I think it was just a misunderstanding.
Yep. And then there's just the A there.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Yep. Okay.
But yeah, I think that was just a little loss in translation. So that looks fine. Thank you.
Excellent. On page 118, there was a comment from Mark Salerno asking us to prioritize the sidewalk to Patagonia Lake. I wasn't necessarily against this, but we did have a method for determining which projects were put in here. I mean, there's a lot of great places for sidewalks. And Kurt, this was your section, right? Do you remember how
Yeah,
you got that?
I didn't call it out specifically. I mean, I called out a bunch of other places. I didn't call that one out.
Right.
I did.
And
I mean,
how
could
did we
add
get these 4 priority ones?
let's see. Oh boy. The 161. That one, I drive down that road every day, so that's where that came from. Black Point Road to Crescent Avenue.
Didn't we though, with Gary, you and
Don had put
Don.
together the plan.
Yep.
And I think we had put some numbers together with the cost or just rough estimates of what based on the linear length of road and at a 4-foot wide concrete walk. And we may have just thought and looked at the map and said, hey, for the cost versus the length of sidewalk and the neighborhoods that it would connect, where do you get the biggest bang for your buck? How many people can you actually connect to that sidewalk? I think was the driving force behind prioritizing this. And
but that reflected here?
Pardon?
Is that reflected here?
No, it's not in that statement. We could add that in if you want. I mean, we could come and describe the methodology that was used. We also have the plan. Maybe that would make more sense if we included the sidewalk plan that we had developed as a figure.
Yeah.
And maybe that might
I bet it gives us even more than this additional one.
So we should insert the figure for the sidewalk plan.
Yeah. I'm just going to add a comment here.
There is a really nice map that shows those too, right?
Yes. Yeah. That's what you're talking about, right, Gary?
Yeah, Don and I put it together. We used the GIS, and I thought we included it under maybe transportation, but
yeah, so did I, but I think that's what this is. Yeah. So I guess we missed it. Oh, well, there it is. Wait.
I was gonna say, I thought it was in there.
Yeah. So
it is there.
So we want to just encourage this.
So I guess I mean, I guess if we want to prioritize, we can. It doesn't hurt.
I can see benefits and drawbacks to calling out specific ones. I mean, I know we already approved this, so I'm comfortable with leaving it as is if needed, but I'm also now on second thought kind of inclined to say prioritize and track sidewalk construction projects in accordance with the sidewalk and walkability plan. figure.
Here, here's the kicker, and I think and I hate to say it's the reality, but Pizzalia just finished building 2 developments right before the boat launch, so none with a sidewalk along Route 1.
He wasn't required to put a sidewalk in?
Zoning didn't require it, apparently. So that, right there, for the next 50 years that those buildings exist, there'll be no sidewalk unless the town puts it in. That's the drawback. So part of that issue is historically we used to make developers install sidewalk within right-of-way, but there's some case law that says we can't force developers to make off-site improvements. So we used to use that to strong-arm them, but now that we kind of can't do that and the law has upheld that, it makes it harder to require sidewalks to be installed off-site. That said, what typically happens is they'll take a portion of the property along the frontage and deed it, they'll demonstrate that, hey, here's a sidewalk on our property, and then it gets deeded, in this case it would be the state, as part of the right-of-way. And then the state would take over the maintenance of that sidewalk, but in this town, it's the town of East Lyme who maintains all the sidewalks, so we would have that responsibility. But unfortunately, with those 2 developments, unless the town comes by and builds it, I don't see that happening, in the near future. So if the Board of Selectmen wants to prioritize it, that's fine. That would help support any funding that we could possibly secure for it. That would
I
be
don't
my.
think that's a huge deal to add it there. I mean, they asked for it. I don't know. I mean, we're already making recommendations for other places. I don't think it's that big of a change.
Okay.
I don't know. I could be convinced otherwise, but.
For lack of anything else.
You know where the sidewalk ends right now? Is it at the post office?
Yes, at the is that apartment complex there, the condo complex? I think it extends a little bit up to Mill Road, and I think it ends at Mill Road.
How about I say Route 1
I actually have
from Flanders Four Corners to Patagonia Lake, even knowing that some of it already is there. That work?
Yes.
I was going to take a look at the map and just see. Oh, this is your. How do I exit full screen? I lost my little exit full screen tab.
I feel neglected. I think that might be the only thing they mentioned about any of my sections.
Oh, I'm sure I could dig something else up, Kirk.
That's good. You're lucky.
I'm like, I must have done a really good job.
Well, here's one we can just kind of discuss quickly. I think it's going to be a quick discussion while Gary's pulling up the map. There was a lot of back and forth about road width. It's the same back and forth about road width that we've been talking about in the Planning Commission and in this subcommittee for 2 years.
I don't think we need to discuss it anymore. I know what you're going for, but I feel like we've talked about this so much that we have it the way we want it.
I agree. Okay.
Not to cut you off, and I'm sorry if it seemed that way, but
no. I'm glad we're on the same page.
Yeah. And if we were to make a change, there'd be somebody else saying, "Oh, well, that's the wrong thing too." So this is one of those topics that I think the pendulum swings one direction and then it goes the other. So
fully agree, and I think we've talked about it enough to be comfortable with our recommendation.
yeah.
It looks like the sidewalk ends at Mill Road. Yep.
Okay.
So from Mill Road to the boat launch, we could use sidewalk.
Okay. Great.
Just for your own edification, there is about 80 feet of sidewalk in front of the dentist's office. this. So they made them put it in there, but didn't make next door two lots down, sorry, to put it in. That doesn't make much sense to me, but I don't know. I'd have to ask Norm why they chose not to do that.
Yeah. Procedurally, can we just take a vote on this since it is like adding to a recommendation?
I vote yes. I don't know if we have enough. Do we have
I
a
don't think
quorum?
we have enough. Oh, Rich, hey. Sorry.
Back, yeah.
I was logged off for a while. They had a power outage, but I'm back.
Are you okay with adding item 20E, Route 1 sidewalk to the boat launch?
Sure.
Okay. And are you okay with the other item that we just needed to make sure all four of us were in agreement on was the change we made to the EV station in parking lots recommendation where we added the line about requiring it in new and redeveloping commercial development?
That's fine. That's fine.
Great. Okay. All right. Next item was about adding commercial fishing docks in the coastal resources section. I think this was another Mark Salerno recommendation that we specifically address commercial fishing docks in the Cheney Park area. We can pull up the coastal resources section. We leaned heavily on the harbor management document, which I feel like is the expert source on that.
That recommendation that he's talking about sounds like it's encouraging of aquaculture, and that's kind of I feel like our leaning in this has been to try to promote that kind of stuff. So I don't know if this is how this fits into that, but
Well, commercial fishing is part of aquaculture.
yes, right. So
I thought we had addressed this, and the only issue that I saw was saying, do we want to continue to promote commercial fishing docks? That's great, but Cheney Park is only so big.
Mm-hmm.
We already have docks down there, so I think we've maximized our shorefront with what's there. I don't know that we could get any more. We tried to get a dinghy dock off of the kayak boat launch, and denied our grant application because of the eelgrass and prop dredging potential. So until the eelgrass bed moves, can we go back and try to reapply? And who knows if money's available when that happens. So I don't know. I mean, short of buying more land along the river to allow more docks, I don't know how we do that.
well, would our existing statements of saying that we are encouraging aquaculture, would that kind of support his recommendation enough?
Well, I thought it did.
I do too.
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of trying to get some consensus that we're covering that already.
I think we are, and I think we're covering it here in goal 1, right? So like the harbor management plan was developed in the same, kind of methodology that we're doing this, and that is the plan for East Lyme's harbor. I don't feel inclined to step over that with our own, no offense to all of us, minimally educated recommendation in this area. I feel like they're the group to research it.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're good there. The water and sewer section, there was discussion about our statement on the moratorium on sewer connections for residential developments, and there was some discussion on providing sewers in sensitive coastal areas like Saunders Point. who was on for that conversation? I want to make sure that we get some interpretation. There was not, like, there was discussion, but I don't feel that there was a specific counter recommendation or suggested edit.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember that part of it, and I'm not really sure.
Well, if they didn't come back with a specific response and they just had some general discussion, whether it was a good idea or bad, I mean, I think then there's really nothing here to act on.
I agree.
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Nickerson made a few comments about the plan's focus on aquaculture. I interpreted that as he feels there's too much aquaculture in this, and he again, there was discussion, a lot of which has played out in town meetings and in the newspaper over the last year. Nothing new to this group. And again, some statements, but I didn't feel like there was, again, a requested edit or counter recommendation offered.
Yeah, and we discussed a lot of this stuff, like, in depth. So I feel like the way we wrote this, none of the things that he said are contrary. Well, maybe they are a little contrary, but I feel like our approach to it, I feel like we did spend a lot of time, and I don't know that he gave, at least my opinion, I don't feel like there was any compelling new information that would make me want to change any of our recommendations.
I agree. Okay. There was a comment about adding a recommendation to rebuild the beach at Crescent Beach, pull in sand from the water.
Question, at Crescent Beach
Mm-hmm.
or McCook?
Both then, and that strip between.
Okay. Because I would argue that Crescent Beach, while it's in our community, is not our responsibility other than
Totally agree.
environmental oversight and camp.
Yep.
So,
but he did specifically say it.
okay. So I don't know that we need to respond necessarily to it. My opinion is after Hurricane Irene and Sandy, we saw more sand on that beach than we knew what to do with.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, it comes and goes. Beaches, you know, they're dynamic. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, if we add a recommendation, we're going to need to add a recommendation that they hire an expert to analyze whether or not the necessity and what the environmental impact is, let alone, you know, I mean, that's a big project.
I agree. And I feel like our job in this plan is to talk about resilience of our, you know, infrastructure and investments, in the Stantec study really covered that. And I like that we're focused on those recommendations, which I think also indicate that shorelines change.
Yeah, I mean, the question is there really a need to replenish the beach? I don't know. You know, I know there's erosion and it occurs, and things travel downhill. So everything that comes off the hill at McCook's, right, it's all lawned. And now we ripped up the asphalt walkway, so that erodes down onto the beach. So that material is eventually making its way onto the beach and will eventually turn to sand, if you will, get worked over.
All right, we're good. There was some discussion about that affordable housing chart, which, just to fill everybody in, I did speak with Gary and Jen to get that updated this week. And I think that was done, right, Gary?
We have to add yes, I believe, yeah, we did that this week before we filed it.
Yes. So for those who were there, that was the discussion about JAG Capital in our inventory of currently affordable housing.
We had some comments in the document that wanted to include the Pizzalia development. We took that out because they haven't even been built yet and it's not approved. So it's just up in the air. But we did add in the JAG Capital Drive into that table.
Great.
So
And
that's
thanks for
accounted
doing
for.
that stage too.
Did they talk about renaming that to the other?
Oh yeah, it's now called Rocky Neck Village. Sorry.
So, and that change was made too.
That, yes. So it is referred to as Rocky Neck Village in the document, I believe.
Yep, here it is right here.
The other table that we edited, I don't know if we'll get to it from these comments, was the one on the category of land use by type. It's, I think, in chapter 1 or 2.
Oh, good.
So we ran into a snag with updating that table. But I updated it. We can look at it, and you can see the change that I made. It is, to me, it's significantly different. Maybe not significantly, but it is different. It's probably the biggest change. And it's the way we got the data from Vision in lieu of the tax assessor having more time to run the numbers. And the numbers you did give us for open space and agriculture PA 490 land, we came out with 14% of town. And then when we looked at her total acreage for the town, it was 22 acres. So we're thinking, okay, the difference that what's not in there are new roads, right? That gets pulled out of the total acreage. But even that was low after considering that as compared to the numbers we had last year. So if you go to the table and you can share it with the group, you'll see how I changed the numbers changed. And the way that the land use type was categorized. And that's only because of that was the most definitive data I had at the moment before filing this thing with the clerk. We could still have Diane go back, and if I can get her to run these analyses so we can get the actual acreages correct and in terms of how the land's being used before November, that would be ideal. Because I prefer the other table, but did the best I could with what we had.
Yeah. Do you remember what section that's in?
It was under, I believe, residential, or in the demographics. It talks about, I believe we have the number of buildings. There's a table of all the housing units since 1990 or something like that, and then it comes right after that.
I was just on that. Missed it. Okay. Ah, there we go. Okay. Great. Thank you for updating that. There was a double check, Rich. I think this one was probably one you wrote down about handicap accessibility at town hall.
Right. I think he mentioned that there was a button that people could use to get into the building, I think, handicapped.
So it looks like we make a recommendation that the town complete its accessibility projects, but Mark indicated that it is complete. So Gary, who's like the person for us to
confirm that?
Yeah.
Joe Legault.
Okay.
Either he or Bill Shear would, either one could probably answer that.
Okay.
Would you like to speak with them on that, or do you want to?
You or me, doesn't matter. I think if we just reach out and then we either strike that sentence if it is in fact done or leave it if it is not.
Go through the front door tomorrow, Gary.
What's that?
I said when you go in the building tomorrow, go through the front door. Isn't that what you're talking about, the front door to the building there? Being handicapped accessible?
I think that was where the ramp is, I think.
Yeah, is that where you're talking about?
I thought so, yeah.
you're looking for the only issue is whether or not that button exists to open the door, right?
Right.
Yeah, I believe it.
I'm just saying if you walk in the building tomorrow and you could see if the button's there. That's all.
Yeah, if I recall, I think there is one. But I'll take a look. And that was just, that comment was only specific to town hall. There was no other municipal buildings.
Right. Right.
Yeah. And Rich, when you included that in there, it was only the button that was missing. It didn't have anything to do with bathrooms or anything like that.
I don't think we discussed the bathrooms in town hall.
I think it was just overall accessibility, right? Should we?
Right.
Okay. I'll take a look tomorrow.
All right. In open space, Roseanne Hardy suggested that we include a recommendation to the town to start an account for acquisition of properties, which I thought was implied, but
The town has what they call a CNRE account. It's a line item in which we had typically, well, I shouldn't say typically, historically, we have put money into for open space acquisition, but the town does not fund it regularly. So I believe, anywhere from $100,000 to $300,000 were in that line item in the last 5 years. So I think what Roseanne's getting at is we need to be consistent with that allocation of money. And I think that's what she's looking for, is a recommendation that says, hey, the town's going to be proactive. Let's budget that way.
mm-hmm.
I would agree with that.
I do too. Do you want to add it? We talk about all this open space to buy, but we don't. It would be item 13 here.
So the fund exists. We just are going to recommend consistent funding of it, right?
Yeah.
What is the name of that fund, Gary?
The line is it's a CNRE account. I forget what that stands for. But a lot of money goes into it here and there for different projects like this. It's part of the capital improvement plan. Actually, I can remember the acronym. It's leading me.
I think we can after we agree that it goes in there, we'll put it in there and then refine the wording of it with the correct name later.
Do we need to name that specifically, or can we just be more general? Because I think our recommendation would also support if they wanted to set up some other kind of thing.
How about
Maybe that-
consistently allocate funding for open space acquisition, maybe?
I was thinking if you started with the word support consistent funding,
There you go.
open space acquisition.
That sounds good.
I like it.
And then she mentioned a couple specifics. Basically, that we need to have something, and if we agree on this recommendation, I'm happy to further play with the wording, but the backup was, we're not going to have millions of dollars just sitting here waiting to buy something outright, but we need enough in there to have a down payment because these things come up fast and we're not able to act because we can't even, finance some of them without the down payment.
I had, one of the ideas I had, can you scroll up? I don't know if it's there. I don't know that we put it in there. Yeah, we go right there, number 7. So one of the little things that I've recently pushed, and I pushed with historical properties because the Conservation Commission never really took it up, and the idea of contribute to a place, which I took from New Hampshire. I think I mentioned it to all of you. So the idea is getting some traction, but I'm thinking it was a great idea, and could it fall under this public-private partnership for funding? I don't, besides, just wondering if there's a spot for that. It's not a significant thing, but
You're right, and I did think that that was in here, so we missed that because we did have a lot of discussion about that recommendation.
but I think historical properties like the idea that, oh, we can generate some revenue for our places, our homes, and the issue being that they were feeling like, oh, when people donate to historical society, they think that they're donating to all 3 homes, but instead it all goes to the historical society, the Thomas Lee House and the Smith Harris, and they don't get anything. So they were like, hey, we can set this program up and at least generate 30 to 35,000 a year, plus or minus, based on what happens, numbers reporting in New Hampshire. That's, who knows what would happen here, but at least it's a start. So
You want to put that in 13, though? I mean, where it might get a little more call out, where support consisting funding of open space acquisition through annual town budget, allow private contributions through
philanthropic programs such as, and I could say, contribute to a place. I mean, I can get some more info on that if we needed to be more descriptive about it.
Do you want to quote contribute to a place, or is that?
Good call. I'm not sure anybody knows what that's going to mean, but I think they can figure it out, though.
I mean,
talk about funding, contribute to a place.
yeah.
Sorry, guys. I was lamenting to Gary yesterday that my daughter's friends have my cell phone number and believe it to be hers. So, getting a lot of calls. Do we want to take a quick vote on this additional recommendation?
Yes.
Okay.
And yes.
All in favor of adding number 13? Rich? Rosemary?
Aye.
Kirk is
Yes.
a yes?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Okay. All right. Some discussion from a couple people on hydroponics. Rosemary, were you in the hearing at that part?
I don't recall. Yes, actually, I think I was. Yes, I was. But I don't really remember exactly what was said.
I think it was just an additional agriculture,
Sure.
supportive agriculture. So I feel like it's already covered in
Yeah,
what we have.
I think it's probably fine.
What were the comments, like, other than?
Who was it? It might have been Salerno. I'm trying to recall exactly who it was.
It was Mark.
Yeah, it was pretty early on, and he just was in favor of
Hydroponics?
mentioning something about hydroponics, which I'm fine with. Yeah, I mean, why not?
I don't think the word hydroponics occurs anywhere in our document, does it?
No, I don't think it does.
So if we could sneak that word under something.
Yeah, could we go up to the agriculture spot?
It might be as simple as just even saying like encourage agriculture and hydroponics. I don't know.
Agriculture, including hydroponics
Including
and
hydroponics.
and all these other things that we mentioned.
Yeah.
So
Sustainable aquaculture.
Oh, this one we got to talk about too. I think, I don't know that it'll change, but that was discussed.
That's true. Yes, you're right. All right. I think maybe it's.
Yeah, I think we really are viewing agriculture in terms of land here.
Yeah, it definitely would not prevent that. You know, like I feel like it includes all types of agriculture.
You know, like we
Right,
have
and you
established
almost-
this.
Oh,
Go ahead.
I
Like,
was just going to say that that type of agriculture is almost like an industrial use.
Mhm.
That's all.
is it?
Well, because you're like inside, you could probably do that in like an industrial park. You could do it in
Commercial,
like
yeah.
where they say an abandoned shopping mall, or you know,
Right.
a lot of
You could do it anywhere, but I could also take a 100-acre piece and put a 50-acre building and outfit it with hydroponics and call it agriculture.
Yeah, and I don't think we're going to do that.
Can you scroll up higher where we define agriculture?
Yes, and I think that this recommendation came from an article that Larry shared with all of us about rooftop hydroponics in a commercial zone elsewhere.
Oh, there we are. Okay. Current state. All right. Can you go down? Sorry, a little bit more. Sorry. Wait. Back up. Current state of agriculture, process growing, culturing, and harvesting of food consumption, both on land and in the water. Yeah. I mean, this is like the state definition. Maybe we could just, add something in. We could just add a recommendation, explore hydroponic and aquaponics in industrial zones in the town. I don't know, that could be fine.
What about putting it in the commercial and industrial section and suggesting to add it as an allowable use?
That sounds
there you
great.
go.
Thank you. That sounds
That's
good.
a good idea.
Yes, awesome. Bingo.
Barry, does that jive with you?
I would say it's not necessarily an allowable use because it's already allowed. It's agriculture. You could do it in an industrial zone.
Oh.
I would say encourage if you were going to encourage the use.
That sounds good.
Right, and
All right,
I've seen articles where they've taken abandoned shopping malls and abandoned supermarkets or whatever, abandoned buildings, and made the adaptation to turn them into a combination fish farm / hydroponic thing where they would grow plants on top and then allow the fish to feed off the bottom. So,
Maybe do that Crystal Mall.
Mm.
well, we got Sears. We got, what else is empty over there?
Quite a bit of that building.
Yeah.
It's the second time we've added a 13th recommendation. It's feeling a little ominous.
And it's October, Halloween. See, it's
Oh.
even worse.
You're making Mark Salerno very happy about this one too, because he goes on and on about his little leaf lettuce.
Oh.
If any of you have had little leaf lettuce, you'll understand.
I have a little Hamana tray. You get a thing and you just add water and it sits in this plastic tray and up come your microgreens.
All right. It sounds like a chia pet.
It's a lot like a chia pet. It's
A delicious chia pet.
very tasty chia pet.
All right. I vote yes for this one.
Okay, Rosemary,
Aye.
Rich,
Aye.
and myself, aye. All right. There was a suggestion from Dan Cunningham to require underground wiring in new subdivisions.
We already do.
Okay, good.
All utilities are required to be underground. Yeah.
Okay, and I think,
Actually, on that note, though, Michelle, it may be, and I'm not certain. I'd have to check with Bill Mulholland whether or not in our zoning regulations we require utilities for commercial development and stuff to be installed underground. Typically, they are, but not always. So that might be a recommendation we could apply there.
okay,
I'll have to check into that. So I'll just make a note to talk with Bill on that.
okay. That was all I had for the meeting notes. Anyone have anything I missed?
I'm sorry.
I do. I have one, but go ahead, Rich.
No, I was just asking if we made the update to the educational spaces section with the sharing of assets.
Yeah, we did discuss it, and I just got to do the copy paste. We voted to just put it both in.
You're gonna go in and do the copy paste. Okay,
Yeah, I'll do that right now.
thanks.
What were you going to say, Kirk?
Yeah, Roseanne Hardy went on to say some things about requiring open space for new developments. And I don't, do you recall that comment? I mean, not that we want to see changes because we kind of already do that.
Yes, and that's where that is, I think, why I stopped taking notes, because all of the subdivisions over 4 lots are required to be CDDs, right?
Yeah,
And
right.
the Planning Commission may require any subdivision to be a CDD
Right.
already, right?
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
I'm just scrolling through to copy paste this.
And there was another one we were going to go back to. I think it was about the accessory uses of farmlands, encouraging something.
Right. Yep. There was discussion there about allowable uses on farms, and some discussion on history of this potential zone change and how they explored it and decided against it. But
I still like it.
I do too.
I think it's needed.
Yeah, I think, and I don't know a lot about farm history or whatever, but as I recall, farmers are rarely just farmers. They're usually farmers that do something else too. And
Yeah,
it's
they
kind
usually
of always
have
been
to.
that way, right?
They kind of have to make a living.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And there was a lot of discussion about the potential for noise and drunk driving. And I understand that, but I think that there's a lot of other allowable uses that do not cause those same impacts.
Or
Yeah.
maybe you could
Ice
just
cream.
say, like, maybe there are, other allowable uses that don't have alcohol involved. I don't know. The drunk driving thing actually did kind of concern me when I thought about it. I was like, yeah, I could see that would be.
I would
Yeah,
say
but
that
I don't see how a farm like that, the potential for that happening at a farm is no greater than a potential of it happening somewhere in town where
Valid
we allow that kind of thing.
Like a
So,
bar. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
police matter.
yeah. And those accessory uses are by permit, right? So if it turns out to be an issue, they pull the permit.
That's a
Which
really
is-
good point.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think that we should be helping the farmers as much as we can, honestly.
I would tend to agree. Yes.
Yeah.
I would have to agree, Kirk. And, you know, drunk driving is a police matter. Self-responsibility as a human, you know,
Yeah.
that type of a thing. But yeah, they need to be able to do more things on their land to stay afloat.
Yeah.
I think it.
Oh, go sorry.
Oh, it's also just a great opportunity for tourism. Like, I don't know, if you look at Stonington, it just seems like the Stonington Mystic area, like they're doing so much with like food and agritourism and like stuff at the vineyards and like Stone Acre Farm. Like they're all becoming really popular places. Like Stone Acres is having like film screenings and dinners, and I know Pauline at Whitegate does do dinners and stuff, but I think that that type of those types of activities are nice to bring people into the community. I don't know, like I would like to go to more things like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would say Pauline's a good example of, you know, she's come forward with a regulation. It didn't get approved, but I mean, she took, you know, went down the right channels, if you will. The town, we probably could have worked closer with her on crafting this regulation, and maybe it's a jumping off point, but here she tried to get it passed, and the concern was the neighbor across the lake didn't want to hear music at 10 o'clock at night. Well, we have a noise ordinance.
Yeah.
So I you know, I understand, but I don't understand the greater good. You know, you look at cell towers, we kicked that off to the Connecticut Siting Council. We created an entire board and commission for that, for the greater good of humanity and to be served by cell phones and technology. Here we're talking about a farm.
Yeah.
Well, and I think this might be an example of, you know, just one of those things where the public sentiment may change over time, and the public may have an appetite for this recommendation further. I think, you know, frankly, it just takes, in some cases, people see losing their farmland to subdivisions and then feel more strongly about, you know, allowing revenue streams to protect farms.
I definitely think there's a story, because when you look at climate change and all those things that are impacting farming, right? I mean, the cards are dead stacked against them. And then you're going to add in, you know, the sentiment that, well, you know, farms can be noxious and a nuisance. You know, well, here in East Lyme, we don't have a chicken factory. I mean, I guess if we did, we could support it. But I think you get my point.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. All right.
I think we're all okay on that one. Anything else that anyone had as a note from the meeting? All right. Gary, I do have the letter that we received from Deep. I can screen share that. I have to be completely honest with you that a lot of this was a little legalese for me. So I could really benefit from your interpretation of a lot of what they're saying. So this is the letter. Does anybody want me to zoom in? Okay.
Now, as I recall, they call out some specific statutory things that we're required to do that either we were not aware of or we just overlooked or what.
Yeah, and I think this is part of our charge to Mark Zamarka as well. Gary's going to get the document to him and this letter to see what is their recommendation and what is the requirement legally.
I want to check this 8-23E2, which apparently
It sounds like some of the studies that were done that we reference.
Yeah, I definitely think that second bullet we covered. We
23.
do reference the Long Island Sound Blue Plan.
So 8-23E says, it starts with number 1, says such plan of conservation development shall be a statement of policies, goals, and standards for the physical and economic development of the municipality. Got all that. We did that. Oh my gosh, did they specify any further? E, give another section number, or
E2.
E2. For any municipality that is contiguous to Long Island Sound, such plan shall be A, consistent with the municipal coastal program requirements as section 22A 101 to 22A 104 inclusive. That would be the coastal area management plan. And B, made with reasonable consideration for restoration and protection of the ecosystem and habitat of Long Island Sound. And C, designed to reduce hypoxia, pathogens, toxic contaminants, and floatable debris in Long Island Sound. I don't.
An analysis of these planning requirements for coastal resource area of the community was not evident in the current draft of the plan. I kind of thought that it was.
Well, we can give them a call and try to ask for clarification. My one thought was we didn't significantly change the section from the previous iteration, correct?
No, and I think what it really is we do not explicitly address sea level rise.
That's what I was
Right,
thinking.
but
And
some of
we
the
don't have
studies that we had do talk about that kind of stuff.
That's
Right.
true. And we do
Well-
have circa stuff in there, but I mean, maybe they want like a map.
Well, yeah, I think the best thing to do is ask for clarification on the comment.
Okay.
I mean, what is it that they're looking for? And not that we have to have it in there, but theoretically that would be an inconsistency if they're suggesting that might be inconsistent with the state plan.
Mm-hmm.
I'm all for asking for clarification, but I mean, and I'm not a scientist that knows a lot about the hypoxia pathogens and toxic contaminants, but I mean, even in the sections that talk about coastal resources and environmental stuff, if we just even took this thing and said, we could even almost just copy that section, that one thing that said reduce hypoxia pathogens and toxic contaminants and put that into our thing, as one of our goals. Do that.
Yeah, and I think we address a lot of measures.
Ask them. What's that?
I'm sorry, I totally interrupted you, and I apologize.
Oh, you're fine.
I think we do address these. We just don't call it out as such, right? Because we're talking about open space in watersheds. We talk about pesticide usage in our shoreline area and elsewhere. Floatable debris. We talk about covering garbage cans.
Well,
You could take that as that bullet there and plop it into one or more of our sections. I mean, I feel like if we all voted on it, and I feel like just from knowing this group here that we all look at that and we say, yeah, that's what we want to do.
I want clarification on this letter from them, because now if you read down that last paragraph on page 2, go up one. It says here the last East Lyme may wish to contact the CIRCA for assistance with compliance for the required sea level change scenarios planning element at required. Who said it was required? I don't know where that said it was required. I don't recall seeing it in a statute, but maybe I'm missing something. There, it's just got to be consistent and made with reasonable consideration and designed to do these things. That we can make a recommendation, and I think the overall plan achieves that. But if there's other things here, I'm not aware of where that requirement comes in. And I understand that DEEP is concerned with sea level rise, and we're a coastal community, and that's their big thing. I think we've taken it into consideration. I think we continue to do that. But
Is it required in 823D?
um, 823.
And I have no doubt that NOAA has some projections of what the sea level rise would be. I mean, that could be just as easy as getting a map from NOAA and putting it into our plan.
Yeah,
Would take
both
care
NOAA
of-
and Circa have that.
And then if we just made a statement that says we want to reduce,
Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
no, oh, I was just saying that, we might be able to, not without too much work, be able to get two of those things off, one with a map and then one with just a statement saying,
Well, I think I can solve our problem. It is a requirement of some sort. 8-23D11. The most recent sea level change scenario updated pursuant to subsection B of section 25-68O and 12, the need for technology infrastructure. So they put it in there. That's a neat one. They snuck in there. But okay, so I don't know what the most recent sea level change scenario is, but if we can just stick it in there somewhere.
All right, do you want to, can we reach out to Circa? Well, we're going to reach out to Deep for some clarification here, which is, it seems like going to lead us to Circa. They may be able to even help us draft something. If that's the case, I think it would be appropriate, just knowing the timeline, for us to bring that amendment with us to the Planning Commission meeting on the 10th, vote on the plan with that additional required information. I think like Kirk said, I feel very confident that it's just a confirmation of things that we've already discussed here and support. So if we want to just get it in correctly.
so those are two things. What else is this thing asking for?
Well, there's a few.
I agree with what you're saying, too, by the way, about bringing it on the 10th.
This is just additional resources, part of the same recommendation, I believe. And we do reference their Marsh study already. Okay, so this one is the second one. Need for a thorough analysis of coastal resource areas and the community's coastal management plan. For a coastal community, Chapter 4 Coastal Resources did not present a thorough and necessary in-depth analysis for these areas, including a discussion of the community's existing coastal management plan. In addition, there was no connection made to any subsequent analysis located in other chapters that would impact coastal resource areas such as development, housing, and demographics, transportation, and utility infrastructure. We did say it in utility infrastructure.
And transportation, I think we did that.
Right.
We referenced the hazard mitigation plan, and the hazard mitigation plan does talk about.
You're right, and emergency services too. It's in there.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Maybe they just want some specific keywords. I don't know.
Well, and I'm not sure, this is another one that the first recommendation was a requirement, right?
Yeah.
I'm unclear if this bullet is a recommendation or a requirement.
Right. This one doesn't have any fancy legal numbers and letters next to it.
Sounds like it's a recommendation, because after the saying thorough analysis, and then they do a semicolon, and then they have this explanation. And then they said the analysis should be included in the plan.
All right.
Okay. Status and discussion of 2009 planning recommendations. The plan should include a thorough assessment of the 2009 POCD recommendations and identify specific results. I thought we did that in the upfront.
well, you know what? Remember we did early on, you guys had that really nice matrix of all the previous recommendations. Maybe if we have that as like an appendix or something. Because that did, if I remember, we did list the outcomes, right? Didn't we say if they were still available or still
Yeah,
applicable?
it was a starter for our, I don't think it's in a publishable form.
Okay.
We certainly could make it one. And I think this part we did. I mean,
Yeah, who wrote this letter?
Karen Michaels.
All right, don't know her. Environmental Analyst 3.
so that's one I would want to know, is it a requirement or a recommendation? This too is definitely in there.
Well, yeah, I interpret this as all recommendation. It was
Except
not
that,
really evident. I mean, that to me is, we went through that whole I mean, we don't need to put that into our POCD. I mean, but it's in there.
yeah, I agree.
I'm like, what did this person read? I don't know.
Yeah, it talks about the dates of the public hearings, the 65 days, when it went on the website, all the work we did at the beginning, which wasn't required.
The proposed recommendations require more detail. I mean, really? Tell you what, you can come down and write this thing.
Well, at that end, it said, like, who would be responsible for implementation? I mean, we did kind of spell that out with our stakeholders, and we're saying who's involved in this. I mean,
Yeah, how it will be funded. Some of them.
Yeah, it's not required. This, I lean back on the statute. So there's a lot of, in my opinion, I can comb through this some more. And missing information, we knew there was missing information.
I know she talked about having the cover page with who
Yeah,
is involved in writing it.
put that in. So that's in the version that's on the website now. We did make that change.
What did they say? What did they say about the maps?
It should
Matt,
have,
yeah.
Well, we do reference the hazard mitigation plan a bunch.
this I don't think is relevant. We talked about your students, Rosemary, at the beginning, but their recommendations don't necessarily touch every chapter. And I don't.
I think the comment is maybe it's intended for just like a citing thing to say where the ideas came from and who worked on them. Is that
Again, yeah, I have to agree. Like, to me, that's an irrelevant comment. So the information was missing, but it has no bearing on whether or not the document is a good document or consistent or not. How the work of sustainable CT was incorporated into the plan, it wasn't incorporated. What we did is we incorporated sustainable activities or recommendations into the plan because we've already started work.
Yeah.
Sustainable CT. We wouldn't necessarily, quote, talk about, I mean, yes, we can talk about what we did and give accolades, but this document isn't meant for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. So the only item here that I'm concerned about is this one that we are going to follow up on, which is the first one.
Okay.
This stuff. So, Gary, are you cool with following up as discussed, following up with Deep and then likely Circa and coming up with something for us to add?
Yeah, that's all going to play into my conversation with Zamarka, and yeah.
Okay, great. That gets to the end of what I wanted to make sure we talked about tonight. And I don't believe we are planning to meet between now and the 10th. I think there's a meeting on the schedule that Jen was going to file a cancellation notice for unless we decided that we needed it.
Correct. And I think that was the
The 27th?
27th, I think, or the 21st. 21st.
Oh, a Monday? Yeah.
Wednesday.
Oh,
Wednesday,
yeah.
October
Okay.
20th.
Yep.
So we can keep it, and as we get closer, cancel it if we need it. I think maybe in lieu of these comments here, if we need it, we can come back and address these. Otherwise, we can just cancel it.
Yeah, or if we get something official from the Board of Selectmen, that really is not what we covered tonight.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Any other business to discuss?
It's only 10 to 8. It's only quarter to 8. This is another record. We're on a roll here.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want another 4-hour meeting, Kirk, I can hang out and chat.
Only if there's refreshments involved. That I'm in for.
We could stick around and write the section on the sea level rise, and
All right, I'll be back in 5 minutes with
Yeah.
a cold beverage.
Hard pass.
all right. So I'll follow up with Mark, Zamarka, and Deep tomorrow, and get clarification. Hopefully, it won't be too arduous to fill in the blanks or whatever we need to do.
It sounds like maybe a map and a paragraph statement, looking at it more closely. Hopefully I'm not being naive.
Otherwise, I think we're in good shape to continue to move forward.
All right. Awesome.
So the next one is the planning public hearing. Yes?
Yes, potentially a meeting on the 27th that right now we don't think we need. 21st. 21st.
And
Probably.
there is another meeting, the 27th, for the regular planning. Well, it's a continuation of our public meeting, right?
Yes, that's what's in my head.
Yeah. And then the 10th is our regular meeting, and then our public hearing for this thing is November 30th. Am I right?
November 10th
10th. November 10th.
at our regular meeting.
Oh, at our regular. Oh, okay. All right. That's going to be a busy
Good.
meeting.
We're like moving along.
Yay.
Here's
Woohoo.
one item that I just have not been able to get across the finish line, and that is the recommendations matrix. And we do reference it in the table of contents, and I know it's something that we wanted to do. And I just, each time I start it, I cannot finish it. So,
You want us to help, like, if you make like the grid for us, do you want each of us to fill in the boxes for, you know, like if you just create the actual grid and then the section leaders can then go in and then we can write the names or the stakeholders who we think should do it? Would that help you?
I think I need to figure out what the best way is to do the grid.
Okay.
Honestly, that's what I've been getting stuck on.
Okay.
So I am happy to go through the plan and plug the recommendations, all of them into a grid, but I'm struggling with how to organize the grid.
Okay. Do we want to talk, or do we want to talk about it or no?
Yeah, why not?
Sure, I'm happy to.
Does anybody
I
have
don't
any
know if we need to
ideas?
have each recommendation have its own part in the grid. That's going to be so many recommendations, but maybe you could have each section have stakeholders. I don't know. Maybe not.
I think we need each recommendation
Each
in the
recommendation? Okay.
by section.
Okay.
What the
Okay.
the 99 plan broke it out into, every board and commission, and then whatever recommendations were applicable to that board was plugged in underneath it. And so you
Like
have
an X.
zoning commission. Here are all the recommendations applicable to zoning. Here's all the recommendations applicable to harbor management, to planning, to board of selectmen, to finance, whoever it may be.
So I have a comment on that. I think that if we're looking at all the recommendations, we must have over 100 recommendations, right? So I think that this is just a thought. Feel free to shoot it down. What if we had a recommendation matrix for each section and then had the stakeholders in like the top? It could be like, so on one side, recommendation, and then you have it written down, and then you have the stakeholders coming out of the top. So it's like conservation committee, agribusiness subcommittee, something else, and then you just have like little X's under who is also going to be doing that. So then you could have that for each section, and then for each recommendation, and then in the top, like at the beginning of the entire document, you could have the stakeholders and the section. You know what I mean? So it's like one.
So it would look like the open space chart.
Is that helpful at all? Does that make
Well,
sense?
if you look at
Helpful.
the open space table, right, it's
Yeah.
got here every piece that we're interested in, and then you go across the top, mark X. That would be, if the matrix was set up, I guess you guys could do it just as well as I could, is X which box goes where, but that would work. And you're saying just put it in at the end of each chapter?
Yeah, or
One.
even
One complete one.
one thorough one with each recommendation and the stakeholders at the top, at the start, or at the end. Probably the end would be fine too, of each chapter. So it'd be like agriculture, maybe there's like a pollinator pathways club, a community gardens club, agribusiness subcommittee, conservation committee, and then each recommendation, and then we check the relevant stakeholders that would be involved and hopefully collaborating to enact each recommendation. And then, so we could do that recommendation by recommendation for each chapter, and then at the start of the whole document, put all of the stakeholders and associate them with each chapter, with each section. So it'd be like agriculture, energy, and then all the other ones. And then you'd have like conservation committee would be working on agriculture and like just broader,
Yeah, I'm not sure how that plays out though, because groups like us, like zoning, like Board of Selectmen, they're every chapter, but because the recommendations
They have to be. That makes sense.
vary so much, right? Like they may be 6 of the 8 recommendations in one chapter, but they're every chapter.
Maybe do it by chapter then, because I think there are just so many recommendations that if we do it not by chapter, I think it would be really like overwhelming to look at.
Well, that's what I'm trying to get at, is one whole list. So
Okay.
instead of going chapter by chapter in the document, you
Okay.
have a 3-page list of recommendations.
Okay.
But as you can see,
Well, because I'm just thinking of all the different stakeholders. There's like.
Well, I tell you what
We could be done. It could be fine. Yeah. Either
if
one.
you could put all the recommendations into just a table in one list, and then maybe I can start filling in all those stakeholders. I mean, again, how many stakeholders do we have that actually, the stakeholders we have are just town affiliated?
It's about 30, I think, was when we sent out the stakeholder emails. I think I remember being there like 30, maybe.
because there's some outside groups. Can I confirm that this is a very micro, but has been a hurdle. Should we number the each recommendation is numbered just 1 through whatever in its own chapter. In the table, should it be chapter number, decimal,
Yes,
recommendation
Definitely.
number? So it's recommendation.
1.1, yes, absolutely.
I
Because
think the whole
otherwise it'll be too
document should
difficult.
Follow that.
And I think we
Right.
should also have a section heading. So in the table, it'd be like agriculture, and then just have one line in bold, the word agriculture, and then recommendation 1.1, plant more vegetables or whatever, and then just have it be like that. And then the next one, energy, and then, 1 dot agriculture, 2 dot energy, and then each sub one be 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. That makes the most sense to me, I think, from like an organizational.
I agree with that.
Okay, I can do that.
I'm looking at the stakeholder matrix right now, and we do kind of, we have it, at least the one that says use this copy.
You want to
I
share it?
think we might have more than one of these, but the one I'm looking at that says to use it, we already do kind of go down. I mean, it is broken out by section. I mean, so like, I could see us using this as like a start and then just adding like underneath here. I mean, because it is kind of laid out in that, chapter-wise, then, chapter-wise order with the stakeholders. I feel like if maybe we add a bunch of lines for all the recommendations underneath there.
All right.
I don't know. I'm just, as we're discussing this thing, I figured I would pull something up so that I could look at an actual spreadsheet or, matrix to try to get some ideas.
I do like how this breaks out community groups, town departments, and town commissions. We were onto something here. Thank you for remembering this. Okay.
And we could do something like have a short title for the recommendation.
Yeah.
And then only include like the short title. So like have a recommendation number, the short title, X's for whatever group they are, and then have a column at the end that says status.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds great.
The only reason I'm thinking about the short title idea is just because of what you were saying, like, the recommendation itself, fitting it into a table, I don't know,
Some of them are multiple lines.
Yeah, a lot of words in a matrix sometimes doesn't work.
Okay. All right, I will take another pass at this, and I will send a flare if I need some.
I might be able to send you over a PDF of the joint land use study, and if you go to the back of that, there's a matrix in that. Might give us some ideas of how they set it up and how they identified the stakeholder who was responsible for which recommendation.
Okay.
Yeah,
model that.
and along that same idea, there's another one in the hazard mitigation plan where they did list out all of the recommendations. Let me see. I think it's up on the thing, up on the share site. I mean, if we're wanting to look at something as examples, I know that one is up there. It's up on. Geez, if I can even get to the share now.
Was that in the data and regional planning documents?
That wherever the hazard mitigation plan is.
So we really just got to get this matrix done by the 10th, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. So I think, Michelle, Jen will be back on Tuesday. I can sit down with her.
Okay.
And then maybe she and I can help you get that done before. I'd like to get it done sooner than later.
Yeah.
So maybe between the end of next week and early the week of the 18th, we can finish it up and solidify it. I'll just make that a priority because I sense, for me, there's a little bit of overwhelm, and I think there's overwhelm for you as well.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I kind of sense that. And yeah, if the three of us can tackle it, then we'll get it done.
That'd be great. It's a stupid thing to be hung up on because we can
Right.
do it. Like it's
So-
just the last thing,
I'll connect with Jen on the 13th, and then we'll probably reach out to you Wednesday morning if that works, and
Great.
then we'll have a game plan.
Excellent. Thank you.
If you want some help looking at the, whatever it is, let me know.
Yeah, if you want to share it and, I don't know, make us, make the section leaders, whatever helps.
Yeah, I'm willing to help too.
All right. But I think between Jen and I, it's really just, I think what it sounds like, we just got to figure out how best to lay it out so it's relatively easily comprehensible.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that. And there should be a something in there that said status
Yeah.
or something. And the other one had like a next
Maybe like
steps
report
thing
card.
or something. I don't know. I like the idea of having some way of tracking the current state of that recommendation.
I think that's smart.
You know what? That's a really good point. I'm not sure that we need that in this published document, but we should use that on the Planning Commission as our working document when we start doing our roadshow and implementing the plan.
I think that's kind of so the comment that Deep gave us at the end there, I think that's what they were getting at. Like from the last plan to now, what have you done? We just took it out and omitted it, right? So we didn't track it well.
It's in the beginning,
I thought, but
in summary.
yeah, it's in there. But I'm thinking maybe that was their focus and thinking there should be more of that.
Okay.
But all right. So you want a status as well. That's not a problem. Okay.
We could hide that column for the document itself, but like after we, start trying to say, we're working towards all these things, we can unhide it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you all for talking that out with me. That was a big help.
I just have to ask, Rosemary, the Patagonia shirt, is it a new one?
No, this is old.
Oh,
All
did
mine
you-
are so old. I love them.
Did you see what Patagonia's putting on the inside tag?
So yeah, I heard that on some of their shorts they have some
Some,
political messages, but I don't
Yeah.
have any of those on my clothes.
I don't care. I just thought it was interesting. That company.
I did hear that. A
I
little
was like,
funny. but
wow.
yeah, very bold statement for
Yeah,
clothing companies make.
right. Anyway. All right. Any other thing? Are we good? Are we?
I'm good.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much.
So moved.
All right.
Right.
I
Second.
beat you to it, Rich.
Was that?
I beat you to the motion. even
Oh,
though you
yeah,
didn't do it
Rich, do you want a second?
I'll second.
Don't make
Aye.
me force you. Aye.
We're very competitive.
yet. Aye.
Thanks, guys.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. We'll be in touch.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.